Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Money Matters TV. My name is Dan White. I'm the host of your show this afternoon. I'm also president of Daniel A. White and Associates. We are a retirement planning firm. We are headquartered in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania. We have two satellite offices in Middletown, Delaware, and also a little further south down in Lewis, Delaware. And we work primarily with people 55 and older, those approaching retirement, and those people in retirement. And I guess the big news, just over a week ago, we were wondering who the next president was going to be, and I'm just grateful that I haven't seen a political ad in at least a week, and I haven't gotten a text message on my phone telling me who to vote for. So all that is behind us. And I guess people were kind of euphoric. The market was certainly euphoric with the outcome. I mean, the S&P 500 jumped about 3 or 4% right after the election. And I tend to not want to rain on the parade, but if you think this type of activity is going to go on for the next 4 years, I think you're missing the point that we still have a lot of debt in the country. We still have some underlying things that they didn't go away, right? The stock market is still probably one of the most expensive valuations in history. The Fed, in my opinion, is between a rock and a hard place. The Fed primarily has a dual mandate, right? They want to keep inflation in check, under control. They've somewhat done a good job at that the past couple of years. It went as high as 9% after COVID when the government printed a lot of money. They raised interest rates very quickly. The inflation rate came down, and things are good. And now they're taking their foot off the gas. And my concern is that they're going to take their foot off the gas too soon, and inflation is going to go right back up. So, the Fed did cut just last week, 25 basis points. It was the second rate cut of the year. But you know what? Absent the massive growth in government spending and deficits that the country is running, I mean, we're adding $1 trillion to the debt about every 2 months. We're spending money like we're at war, and we're not, So we expect a lower short-term interest rates and much higher yields on bonds. So bonds are going to take a hit. The other signs of the recession are already here. Office delinquencies are approaching near financial crisis levels. Delinquencies in commercial real estate hit 9.4% in October, double the level from a year ago, and the highest from the meltdown back in 2008. Another sign of a top in the market is hedge funds borrowing hit a new high. Total prime brokerage firm borrowing by hedge funds hit $2.5 trillion. It's a record high. And with the prime rate at 8% and stocks at all-time high levels, I mean, I think the so-called smart money is about to learn a very painful lesson. So I think where we sit today, you got to be careful. I mean, obviously, if you're 30 years old, you have a long way to go to retirement. But if you're 55, 60 years old, and you've got the majority of your nest egg in the market, which we see a lot of people in our office every day, they're taking risk with 85 to 100% of their retirement assets. Again, what do they tell you to do? Buy low, sell high. We're at an all-time high. There's still going to be a lot of headwinds out there as far as the market going forward. It's probably a good time to really evaluate and perhaps take some risk off the table. So that's kind of my spin on the markets today. It was a peaceful thing. The election really wasn't as close as people were projecting it. But we moved forward. The world did not collapse 1 week ago. We're still here, and we're going to move on. So good news. I am joined on the program today with Dana Crouse. She's a regional VP from Northwest Bank. Dana, welcome to the program.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on. And we wanted to talk a little bit about your world in the finance world. So, from what the notes I was sent, you're in the commercial lending field. And
Correct.
I just mentioned that, office delinquencies are hitting hitting all-time highs. But if you want to ask me about a little bit, if I could ask you a little bit about the commercial lending landscape, where do you see it right now? Where do you see it going?
I mean, we are doing great in the commercial world. Today, I'm issuing a term sheet for $6.5 million on a new building expansion and equipment. I work with companies up to 50 million in revenues on all types of projects: business expansion, new acquisition, building purchases, equipment financing, working capital. So I think our team is doing phenomenal at Northwest Bank.
That's great. I guess one of the things that we hear a lot is when COVID hit, everybody went home. Right, everybody went home. They're all
We were
working
working
from home.
around the clock.
Yeah. So everybody started working from home. I know a lot of businesses have said, "Hey, you got to come back to the office a couple days a week," and some big companies are now requiring their employees to come back full time. What has your experience been? Do you find that? I mean, I have a friend that does IT, and he said a lot of law firms, for example, they found out they could send a lot of guys working from home, and they didn't need 12,000 square feet, and they cut it back. Do you find any problems with vacancies in the commercial space at all today?
So I'm in the commercial and industrial space, which is owner occupied real estate, not the other real estate world for investment where they have tenants
Okay.
like that. It's been definitely an issue. I am familiar with that space. So office spaces like those are higher risk to a lender unless they've had a tremendous amount of experience and background and continual rent rolls with existing tenants and things like that.
Yeah, and I guess if a bank does have exposure to those types of properties, and they're kind of a little worried at this point because you got vacancies, and then you might not have people paying the rents, and then you got a whole cycle going down. So.
There's definitely bank risk involved if it's not managed properly.
Yeah, and I would say mainly it's probably not the bigger ones. It's probably more the regional banks and the smaller banks that provide those loans and that type of financing. So, if you could, why don't you talk a little bit about the SBA loan program?
So there's a couple loans that we see in my commercial space. The SBA 7A loan, it's typically used for purchasing a business, purchasing a new building, new construction. You can purchase land. You have the new construction equipment financing involved in there, working capital, debt restructuring, and you can take a term of 10 to 25 years, 10 on non-real estate and up to 25 on real estate. The other loan is an SBA 504, which is a split structure with the bank and a CDC. It's for long-term fixed assets, and the bank takes 50% of the loan. The CDC takes 40%, and the customer puts in a 10% cash injection. So we'll do building, fixture, new construction, equipment financing all in one project with that program.
That's interesting. I think a lot of people, when they think about commercial lending, they think just, primarily about, hey, I'm going to buy a commercial building, I'm going to have tenants, but it sounds like you guys do, soup to nuts, construction, financing, everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that you have conventional financing and you have SBA financing. There's lots of options. Conventional, they typically want 20% down. SBA, they'll ask 10%. Special projects, a little more.
So tell us, if you could talk a little bit about the benefits of working with a commercial lender on business expansion, because I'm sure a lot of guys just try to go through their own outlets and the people they know, but what are the benefits of working with somebody like you for a business that's trying to expand?
Thank you for asking. So benefits of working with me, I would say, would be to review business plans, future needs. If you have a business that you're looking to expand, hire new employees, buy a new building, construction, We can help you put all that together and structure the proper financing for all of those different projects. We can get you working capital to hire additional employees, inventory to order additional raw materials in, funding for payroll when you're waiting on the raw materials to be made and build. So there's all different types of things. We can finance all your equipment. We can do multiple locations. So those are some ideas.
How strict is the I guess the underwriting on that type of stuff? Like,
well, that's why we review the business plans and then financials to establish what their existing cash flow is. We look at so depending on what their type of project they're doing, if they're expanding into a new building and they're adding revenue to the company, we'll have them do projections. We'll add those projections additional to the cash flows we're looking at over the past 3 years. So there's all different types of ways to look at it.
That's great. That's great. So it sounds like you're really the kind of the grease that keeps the commercial businesses running with the cash.
Yeah, we'll find a way to get some deals done and help clients out. I've done a lot of projects with my existing customers.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, we do have a question from somebody in our audience today, Sam Frank from Philadelphia. He wants to know what does beta mean in the investment world? And beta, a lot of people are unfamiliar with it, but it basically measures the volatility or the systematic risk of a security or a portfolio compared to the market. So, for example, if you had a very high beta, the market might be a 1. If beta was more than 1, that means that particular investment you're looking at is probably more volatile than the market as a whole. If you have a very low beta, it's going to be less risky. So beta is really just a measure of volatility or risk as it comes as it pertains to investments. So if you have a question you want to ask on our show, here's how you can send it in to us.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
Okay, so now we're back and we have a guest on our show today. Our guest is Elaine Pasqua. Elaine is a keynote speaker, a board member of the National Speaker Association of Philadelphia chapter. Welcome to the show, Elaine.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with both of you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And I've been to being in the retirement business. I've been to a lot of conferences and all around the country, and they always have some fantastic speakers. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say today. How do you get started in the professional speaking business?
Well, it's a long. How did I get started?
Yeah.
It's a long story, but it all began because my mom and stepdad died of AIDS-related complications. My stepdad unknowingly contracted the virus and passed it on to my mom. I never intended for this to become my livelihood, but I just wanted to speak out to raise awareness that this was everybody's disease and to break down the stigma and to prevent other people from going through what my family experienced twice. And then I started calling everybody and anybody in around the area, working with all different types of groups. And then one day I called Delaware Valley College, well, it's now university, and the dean of students loved my program so much, he mentored me and he got me on the national circuit. And little did I know that this was going to blow up and expand to becoming an incredible livelihood and provide me with opportunities that I never thought I would ever experience. Working with the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, over 700 campuses nationwide, and also working with corporations and businesses. So it's a very gratifying way to make a living, but it's hard work as well.
That's great. So what is one of the topics you're most passionate about speaking on?
The combination of relationships and how people work with one another and communicate with one another, whether it's in an intimate setting or in a workplace setting, and also health. So if we take care of ourselves, we take care of our relationships, then we are going to be much more productive and much more profitable. So when I work with like NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball teams, it's all about making positive choices so they can be remembered for their stellar performance out on the field or on the court, rather than being remembered for their indiscretions. Because for those groups, I'm talking about healthy relationships and also healthy choices in regards to alcohol and sexual violence and sexual health and just the behaviors that occur outside of the competition. And then in the workplace, I talk about incorporating wellness into your own life and also bringing it into the workplace culture, because we find that businesses lose about $226 billion annually from people having to call out sick. And of course, then we're not as productive, we're not working as well as we could. And so it's about combining your own personal wellness with wellness in the workplace. And then I do work with inclusion and communication and trying to create a positive workplace culture.
It's funny that you say that, Elena. And when you talk about dealing with professional athletes, I think one of the problems, and it's inherent. I mean, they're given a lot of money at a very young age, and quite frankly, I don't know how any of us would really be able to handle that. I mean, you'd love to think you'd be responsible and that type of thing, but unfortunately, a lot of them go off track. And as far as I have to laugh at professional speaking. I did take a public speaking course in college, and I do a lot of public speaking myself in seminars and that type of thing. And public speaking, you probably heard this, is like most people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying.
Yes,
Right?
I know.
So if you're at a funeral, the guy doing the eulogy would rather be the guy in the casket.
That's great. You get used to it. I mean, well, I don't know. I still know people. I was in New York the other day for a memorial service. A woman's in the bathroom. She's at the sink and she's eating one chip after another after another. And I said, "You getting your blood sugar up?" And she goes, "No, I'm performing and I'm nervous as heck." And so there's a lot of people that still get nervous when they're on stage. I find that if you're really familiar with your material and you've practiced and you know it well, you don't get nervous. I mean, I can be in front of 2,000 people and be fine, and I enjoy myself. My smallest audience was one person. It was a tornado warning 10 minutes before, and the student came in and her hair was blown up in a beehive, and she goes, "I have to write a paper on this." And so I sat knee to knee and I gave her an hour's worth of information. So it's got to be ready.
And we hear a lot, social media, you hear a lot about influencers and influential people. What makes somebody a good influencer in social media today?
I think it's somebody that knows how to connect and how to have the right message to bring forth to people. And in the world of speaking, we often say that people don't necessarily remember what you said, but they remember how they felt. And so if you can dial down and connect with people's emotions, that's how you're going to best influence them. So if I'm speaking and if I have a technical point that I want to bring forth, I always anchor that with a story that they can remember. And a lot of times when people come up to me after my programs and, they say that they like the program, and I always ask them, what spoke to you? And invariably, everybody says your stories. So stories matter. So what we all should be doing is collecting stories. And if you become a good storyteller, then you're a good speaker as well.
On the topic of leadership, what are some good qualities of a good leader?
I learned a lot about leadership when I was the president of National Speakers Association's Philadelphia chapter. And it was interesting because it's the first time, I mean, I was always a leader and, secretary of student council, and I always was very involved. But this was the first time that I was leading an organization. And I describe my leadership skills, or my basis of my leadership is leading with the heart. And I felt it was important to make everybody feel important, make everybody feel welcome, feel like I was meeting everybody's needs. I mean, you can't please everybody, but you do the best that you can. And when people walk in the door and they feel the warmth and they feel the community, I think that's a really solid foundation for leadership. Understanding that we're all different. And so being able to meet different people's needs, but yet still finding the common cause for what we do want to accomplish.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I've heard that line before, that people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. And storytelling is so important when you are doing public speaking. So if you were trying to help somebody or train somebody, with their communication skills, what advice would you give them?
First of all, know your material and know it inside out. You don't have to memorize everything or one of the things I will talk about in terms of public speaking, there's death by PowerPoint. You don't want to rely on PowerPoint, and you don't want to be turning your back to the audience to read your PowerPoint. There's nothing more boring than that. You want to have a lot of energy and a lot of energy in your voice, ups and downs, being louder, being softer, knowing when to dial it down, knowing when to bring it up, and knowing, again, how to connect with people. So it's important that you bring a lot of variety into your speaking style. And what I've also learned just from going to National Speakers Association's conferences every year, I hate standing behind a lectern because I feel that cuts me off from the audience. And I want to connect. And in fact, I spoke at a conference out in Texas, and somebody remarked and said, I love the fact that you were the only speaker that came to the edge of the stage. I want to be as close to the people and feel like I'm bringing them in to my world, and we're part of each other's world for however long that I'm on stage. So it's, there's so many different components that come in to being a speaker. Eye contact, and movement is important too. I've learned to be more of an actor. And so I now move around and do, create hand motions that are appropriate for the different phrases and the different words that you are expressing.
What area of health training do you specialize in developing?
I talk about the holistic approach to health. I am older than I look. A lot of people are like, whoa, we can't believe the energy that you have. And so I used to be a dental hygienist, so I have a very strong appreciation for the human body, this machine, and how it works on what we call homeostasis. It's a delicate balance of 11 different systems that come together and create the efficiency or create whatever our function. And so I believe that health is holistic, and I want people to understand movement is important. You can move at your desk all day long. There are things that you can do. I have weights in the corner of my office. I sometimes will get on the phone and I'll lift weights. You don't want to do too heavy, because if you're breathing heavy in the phone, people might get a little suspicious. And so you can get up and do leg lifts. You can do arm circles, anything. You can do push-ups off of your desk. And then diet is so important. We are what we eat. And so many people are putting a lot of toxins in their body, especially sugar, which breaks down the skin, it depletes the immune system, and we just don't think as clearly. We're eating a lot of processed foods here in the United States now, and so we're not as healthy as we used to be. Mental health issues are huge. Mental health is a huge issue right now in this country as well. And so talking to people about how to have that self-care, how to find resilience in your life, spending time outside, unplugging from our cell phones. We are so addicted to our devices that we're not connecting. And we look at the countries called the Blue Zone. That's the area where people have the best longevity in the world, and there's certain pockets around the world that we consider to be blue zones. And if you are, what they find is that they eat a Mediterranean diet, they garden, because gardening, you're exercising, you're moving for hours and hours, but yet it's gentle on the body. And most importantly, they're very social. They spend a lot of time connecting to one another. And we have been slowly disconnecting from one another because of the technology. People want to schedule a phone call with you now. You don't have the spontaneity that we used to have with friends just picking up the phone and calling you. So there's all these different things that we integrate to bring in to have that mental wellness, the physical wellness, and to have that productivity and have the energy that we need to get through the day.
It's interesting you talked about connecting with people and getting right up with the audience. I mean, some of the most effective speakers I've seen, they'll actually come off the stage and walk around the room and in the audience, and they're mic'd up, with a wireless mic, and it is a very effective practice. But
it is, and spontaneity is important too. I do a lot of interactive exercises, and I do exercises where I'll get a whole audience moving around, or I'll bring people up on stage, and people love that. They like to be part of it, and it creates more fun, spontaneous moments, and I learn as much from them as they do from me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, you're fine. One thing I'm kind of interested in, you have worked in the NFL, and I'm a big NFL fan here in Philadelphia with our Eagles. What type of work have you done with the NFL?
I come in the months of May and June and work with the rookies. Same thing with Major League Baseball. I've worked with the Phillies. I've been with the Texas Rangers now for the last 6 years, and I'll be out doing staff training for the Pirates next week. And for the NFL, I come in just as they're bringing the rookie class in, and they have me addressing issues regarding the partying and the choices that they're making outside of the competitive arena. Again, talking about alcohol, sexual assault, sexual health. And a lot of these guys are targets because young women see them coming and they think cha-ching, and they want to ride on the coattails of their success. So as you mentioned, they have a lot of money. There's a lot of attention, and the women are throwing themselves all over these guys, and they're right out of college. So they're so vulnerable in so many different ways. And so I'm trying to get them to think here and not with other parts of their body, and to just be able to step out of different situations and think long term, even as things are building up around you, and just say, if I do this, is it going to take me in a direction that I'm going to regret and it's going to ruin my reputation? Or will I continue to go in the direction that I've worked so hard for? So I want them to reflect.
What's your next presentation?
Next Tuesday, I'll be with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I will be doing, I worked for them this year for the first time with their rookies down in Bradenton, Florida during spring training. That's when I work with baseball. And then I will be doing front office training for them. There's certain topics that Major League Baseball mandates. So I will be doing a program for their staff on Tuesday, and I'm excited to do that. And then I'll be in Boston with a women's group on the 4th of December. And then the following week, I will be with Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey. I've done a fair amount of work with the military, which I really enjoy as well. It's just an honor to work with our service members.
Well, it sounds like you're racking up the frequent flyer miles quite a bit, and that's a great thing. We're just about out of time, but I do want to thank Elaine and also Dana for being the co-host. I want to thank you both for being on the show today. And our next guest is going to be next week. We're going to have Max Pog. He is the founder of the Venture Studio family. So you want to make sure you tune in for that next week. And I would just want to thank everybody for joining us today on another great show of Money Matters. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.